So Dr. Armstead. Dr. Armstead is a tenure track assistant professor with 16 years of experience as an occupational therapist. Her clinical experience includes adult neurologic-based rehabilitation, specializing in spinal cord injuries and neurodegenerative conditions, physical disabilities across the lifespan, along with community health promotion. Dr. Armstead's research and interests include exploring occupation-based interventions focused on total wellness among marginalized populations, community health, and chronic disease management among the people living with HIV and neurodegenerative conditions. Dr. Armstead has published more than 11 peer-reviewed articles, presented at regional and national conferences, and develops occupational therapy continuing education content for a CE provider. She's received grant funding to support her research and continues to work to reduce health disparities and inequities among marginalized populations. With that, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Amber Armstead. Again, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat. Dr. Armstead, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Yes, you can all see my slides, I hope. Okay, so good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Amber Armstead, and it is beyond a privilege to be here with these amazing individuals. I've been inspired by the two people who've preceded me, and I look forward to hopefully helping some of you all or inspiring you all. So I am, as Mr. Johnson said, an assistant professor at the University of Texas Medical Branch at Galveston. And so this is my version of embracing excellence in academia, my journey and my story. So I always start with a quote, and this one is Shirley Chisholm, because she was just amazing. And one of her favorite quotes is, "You don't make progress by standing on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining. You make progress by implementing ideas." And so I've tried to live my life in this profession as trying to push it forward. So hopefully we can embrace that excellence and continue to move occupational therapy forward, because we're an amazing profession and I feel like we don't toot our own horn enough. So I'm an academic. I always have objectives. So the audience will understand my journey, recognize the key moments, resources, and people who led to my success, because I can tell you, I didn't do this on my own. I'm still not doing it on my own. And I'm trying to bring as many people with me as I can and identify the strategies along the way that helps me. So we'll start with my journey. So who am I? So I am the youngest child of a single mom, and I grew up in a small town. That seems to be a reoccurring theme today. We all grew up in these small rural towns in the South. My mom is my greatest hero. From a very small child, she has instilled in me education is the way. That's how you're going to get what you want. That's how you're going to help others. You need education. So she pushed me toward it. And she always has been. She's always been my biggest champion. And along with her are my grandparents, who are no longer with us, but who were her seconds. And they were always, reassuring me, pouring into me, "You're brilliant. You have a big future ahead of you. You're going to do something. So just remember that. Don't ever let anyone stop you." And along with that were my godparents, who were the example of Black excellence to me. Both were HBCU graduates, and both were just these enormous figures to me, always pushing me, always reminding me that I could do what I wanted. And then I had three teachers from my childhood that I want to shout out. Being in this Black body and always being cognizant of that, I was put into the gifted and talented program in the first grade. And I was typically the one or maybe one of two Black kids in the class. And so there was a lot of times I was lost in the shuffle, but my second grade teacher, Miss Kim Gwen, always made sure to remind me that I had earned that position there, and to remember that and remember that I have this intellect, and she just poured into me. Moving forward, my 8th grade English teacher, Miss Paula Russell, same thing. She tapped into my creativity side. I'm an introvert, so I had to practice this talk that I'm giving right now several times, but she poured into me, just be creative, let it all flow out. And then last but not least, the first Black teacher I ever had was my high school band director, Mr. Taylor. And he saw something in me and he cultivated it. He was hard on me. He didn't let me slide or anything, but I came into high school band, yes, as first chair, and I kept it. I was the first Black drum major we had in my high school, and he was just really big on, you're going to be great. I am not going to hold you to a lower standard. I'm setting the bar here, and you're going to reach it. And that was really instrumental to me. And all of that led me to college. So this is my undergraduate down here. That is the University of Texas at San Antonio. I had a full ride presidential scholarship. And it was there that I met my tribe of other like-minded Black students who just helped me, and we helped each other, and we were just constantly each other's support, being the best representations we could be and reaching for the stars. And so I did that. So in this picture, you see me, and then you see my mom and my brother down here at the bottom. So my time at UTSA led me to UTMB for grad school, which is also where I currently work. So I attended UTMB, and while I was there, I was the president of our OT Honor Society, Pi Theta Epsilon, and I was secretary of SOTA. And I've got two pictures here because these were the two professors that saw not only me being a clinician, but told me repeatedly that I needed to think about pursuing a life of research and education and becoming a professor. So in this top corner, we have Dr. Suzanne Peliquin. She was the Slagle lecturer the year I began OT school in 2005. And she poured into every student she ever taught, just how to embrace OT, how to love the profession. And down here, we have Dr. Patricia Fingerhut, who was one of my professors when I was at UTMB, but she was also my first academic boss. She was the program chair when I joined the faculty in December of 2018. She followed my career. She instilled in me that she could see a life for me as a professor and kept following me. And even when I started my doctorate program, was just pouring back into me, hey, when you're ready, come on, come to UTMB. We'll have a space for you. So after my time as a graduate student at UTMB, I started my career at Harris Health. And I want to talk about my clinical life because I can't be the professor that I am, the educator that I am, without being the clinician first. And I'm still a clinician, and I still treat and I still practice. And I'll go more into that. But I started my career at the Harris County Hospital District, which is now known as Harris Health. I live in Houston. And one of the speakers today was my first mentor ever as a clinician, and that's Michael Simpson, who was management at the time at another hospital. And he would take time, because I was a baby OT and I was just eager and I wanted to learn everything. I was working inpatient rehab. I was so excited to be working with that population that needs, the underserved population that needs that help, that extra. And so, but I had no real mentorship there because we had to treat. We just had a high volume, we had to treat. So Michael would take time out of his schedule, and every other Thursday afternoon, he would come sit with me, and he helped grow my skills as a clinician and my confidence as one. So and it was great to see a Black OT and a Black male OT, because that was just so rare. And he just ensured that I was going to have these skills. I was going to be just a great OT. And I have Elderine Turner because when I was a student at Harris Health, she was the first Black OT that I met. And she just poured into me constantly. So I've had people pouring into me, seeing something in me and wanting me to grow. After I left Harris Health, I went to Tier Memorial Hermann. Tier is a pretty big name in rehab. And I climbed pretty fast there. I became the OT clinical coordinator, the student program coordinator, and the strength unlimited coordinator. And yes, I had like 4 roles all at the same time. But it also helped grow me as a neuro OT. I became a spinal cord expert here and fell in love with all things neuro. And it was just a blessing to work there. And then after I transitioned from there, while I was working on my doctorate, I went to Houston Methodist, which actually was my second level 2 field work. And I have to shout this out, so sorry, Ms. Joseph, if this is embarrassing. When in 2007, I had the opportunity to shadow, while I was a level 2 student, Miss Judy Jenkins Joseph, who is now the executive director of TOTA for us. And she was everything I wanted to be as an OT. Smart, amazing, revered, respected, and an amazing clinician. The patients loved her, the staff was just enamored by her, and I wanted to be like Judy. So shout out to Judy, because she helped inspire me to want to keep going, and she just kept doing it. Every time we'd run into each other, how are you doing? You're great. all the way to this day. So Judy, you have been a gigantic inspiration for me. So thank you. So while I was pursuing my clinical life as a senior therapist, I enrolled at the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston School of Public Health. And in about 4 years and 10 months, that's around the time it took me, I obtained my Doctor of Public Health degree, DRPH. And my focus while I was there was examining the management of chronic HIV for basically Black, Indigenous, and people of color living in the community. And so that was my goal. I had a cousin who I lost to HIV in 2009, and I was determined, nope, I am tired of seeing, Black, first of all, I didn't even know people were still dying from AIDS, but they were, and they are. And second, it's a huge problem in the Black community. So I was on a personal mission to stop that. And I'm like, what's OT doing about this? Because we're so great. And we teach people how to manage chronic conditions. We teach people how to live with disabilities. We teach people how to maintain their function. What are we doing for this population? And what I noticed is that our literature on this subject kind of runs out in the early 2000s. So that became my mission. And so that was the subject of my dissertation. And that is what I initially began publishing my stuff on, was how are people managing HIV and how can we OTs help them do a better job of it? And then from my dissertation, spun several programs I've developed, one being Project Leaf, which is a program I developed for people living with HIV who are community dwelling at a clinic in Houston known as Avenue 360, which it's on a sliding scale. It helps people living with HIV and other chronic conditions who have a lower socioeconomic status manage their health care. So I ran groups here with these individuals using all the stuff that we know how to do as OTs, using my knowledge as a neuro OT, and helping them manage their care and then keep it going. So I actually trained the people that I was working with, the peers, to start keeping it going. And now there's peer-led trainings on the stuff that I created. And so my research is always focused on health inequities. So I started with chronic HIV and then pivoted a bit once I got to UTMB because aging is really big in Galveston. And so I want people to age in place, and I want people to age in place successfully. And so I've pivoted my research to focus on people aging in place successfully, especially when they look like us or they're other peoples of color. So that is what I've been working on and continue to work on. So I wanted to talk about basically how I got into academia and then what helped me. So like I said, I'm an introvert. I am not someone who likes to talk in front of people, and it can be a bit scary for me, but I loved teaching. And so when I started my career in 2008, and exactly 1 year later, I was given a student, and I had students every year, at least one a year, my entire time as a full-time clinician. So I had a student every year from 2009 to 2018. And each year, those students would tell me, Amber, you need to be teaching in front of people. Like, I can't even imagine what I could have accomplished had you been my professor, because you've taught me so much. So if you are interested or even think you want to get into this, take students. I know Ms. Young already said that, and we're going to be repeating each other a lot here, but take a student. Try it out. Share a student if you don't want to have a student all by yourself. People will be willing to share students with you. Reach out to local OT programs that are near you and ask if you can guest lecture. I loved doing that. That's how I got my feet wet in 2013. I started guest lecturing at my alma mater on spinal cord injuries for both the OT program and the PT program. And then other places, I started speaking at different SOTA programs. So if you're interested, reach out to the SOTA organization at that school and say, hey, I'd like to talk to y'all or present. SOTA programs love that. SOTA organizations love talking to actual clinicians. So that'll help you get your feet wet. Make contacts with people. Go when you're at these conferences, take some business cards with you, get business cards, talk to other people, and use LinkedIn. I am not a social media person on purpose. I like my privacy. I like my life being separate and not living it on the internet. But LinkedIn is a great resource. And I know for me personally, in 2017, I just started reaching out to Black OTs I found on LinkedIn and just making connections with them because I wanted to have that sense of community outside of just where I was working. So if you want to get into academia and you're either just a little timid about it or you don't even know where to start, this is how you start. Just get your feet wet out there. And you're a clinician, or you're going to be a clinician, because I know there's students on here as well. So you have an expertise that you don't even realize you have. And there are so many professors who would love to give you an opportunity to talk to their students, and it'll get you curious. Other things, like I said, you want to network. Join your alumni organizations. Join them at your undergraduate program, whatever program you're at, whatever schools you went to, be a part of those alumni associations. You'd be so surprised how many people you'll meet and how many people would love to help you simply because you have that thing in common, that you graduated from that same school. And social organizations. There are a ton of social organizations, and a lot of people have no idea what OT is until they need us. So if you're interested in joining like the Junior League or the Lynx or any of those organizations, you can infuse OT into all of this. You want to get active. One thing that I've always admired about the people who are serving is they are serving our community. And as someone who has a servant's heart, it's imperative that we give back. So if we want to continue changing the face of OT and making it look more representative to the people that we serve, we need to be representative and get active. We need to join our local and state organizations and, pour into them. If we want to see changes, we can't do that on the sidelines. As I said with the quote from the amazing Shirley Chisholm, we need to get in and implement actual actions. This is something I still struggle with, and Dr. Kitchens gets on me about this a lot. Show off. Present at conferences, present at local meetings. For me personally, when I was preparing to interview for my job that I currently have as a professor, I actually presented at the Gulf Coast East District meeting before that on my dissertation work, and it got me warmed up, but it also brought me to the attention of other schools that were around me. So they knew that, oh, Amber exists and she has a doctorate. So get out there, even if you don't have any of that yet. Talk about the stuff that you are passionate about, that you're interested in, the stuff that you have expertise in. If you have this great way of treating stroke patients, let us know about it. Because one thing we OTs do not do well is talk about ourselves and publish our work. And I say that as I'm sitting on 3 manuscripts right now that I need to stop being perfectionist and submit. So we need to do a better job. And also, this is super important, and we have to do this anyway, seek out higher education. Invest in yourself, invest in your future. You attain that higher degree, go get those certifications. It's only going to make you a stronger clinician and make you even more of an advocate for the profession by you having this. You also need to be the representation that we seek. And one way to do that is to be highly visible. So you're in academia, so you get in, so now what? As Dr. Young mentioned, find a mentor. And that's not always the easiest thing to do, but you got to be vulnerable enough to ask for help. So if there's someone doing something that you are interested in, even if it's not the exact same thing, seek them out, send them an email. I get emails all the time from people who want to talk to me, and we talk. I make time for that, especially when they look like us or they're other people of color, because I know I am being representation for them. Finding guidance from others who have come before you is key. They have tried things, they have strategies that work, and why not? You want to have a support system. Find like-minded people who have your best interest at heart and who you can support as well. It's a reciprocal relationship. You want them to do well, they want you to do well. Academia can be quite competitive, so it's nice when you have a soft place to land and someone you can talk to who can relate to you. I have that in Dr. Kitchens at UTMB. We do a lot of that, a lot of affirming each other, and it works. And we also are a really good team. We teach together and we do a great job at it, and our students love us for it. So you want to have people who surround you who want to see you succeed and that you want to succeed just as much. It's also great to find your niche. Learn about yourself. When you want to become a teacher or a researcher or both, what makes you happy? I am an OT. I've been an OT for 16 plus years now. And I love the profession. I love everything about it. And I feel like we fit in so many different ways. And although clinically I am a neuro specialist, my research is with individuals who are underrepresented all the time because they need us. They need us and they don't get us until something catastrophic has happened. And I want that to stop. So what can we do about that? Well, if we start infusing ourselves into things and forcing people to say, hey, you know, I'm this OT, I'm going to sit at this table with you. And if they don't have a chair for me, I'll bring my own folding chair. We sit there and we tell them, hey, this is what OT can do for you. And if we can get to these clients before the catastrophic thing happens to them, think about all the things we can prevent. And I always love to cite the Rogers et al. Article from 2016 that OT is the #1 ancillary service in hospitals that save hospitals money. And why is that? Because of how we treat our patients. We're holistic. We see the whole picture. We don't just concentrate on the deficits. We look at those strengths and we play to those strengths. So you want to do that in every part of who you are. But the last thing on the slide, and this is something that I'm still working on, and I mean really, is balance. You have to learn how to set boundaries. No is a complete sentence. And you don't have to say yes to everything, especially if it's not going to serve you or if it violates your ethical compass. Other lessons, feedback, listen to it and take what you need. There's a lot you can learn from everyone. And I always tell my students this, I've been saying this since I was in the clinic full time, and I still say this now. Your techs know a lot. Listen to your techs, learn from your techs. CODAs are the masters of treatment. Talk to CODAs, find out what they're doing that's been working and infuse that into your treatment plan. You can learn from so many people around you. I learn from my students. There are things my students teach me all the time. And as a professor, I don't just wait on my course evaluations to find out how I'm doing. And I am doing this next week with my students because that's midterm. I ask them in the middle of the semester, what's going well, what could go better? And I take what I need. Some of the feedback is not nice. It's not constructive at all. So you sift that out. Some of it is really relevant and will help you. So I use it. Rejection. Let me tell you, as an academic who writes grants, who writes manuscripts, rejection happens. And what you do is you learn how to roll with it. You take that information you got from that rejection and you pivot to the next thing. We're OTs, we adapt, we have to. Courage is my word of the year for 2024. And you have to have the courage to try and to keep trying. This is scary for me to be talking among this entire group of these amazing Black clinicians and students, but I'm here doing it. You have to have courage. I had to have courage to apply for OT school. I had to have courage to apply for the jobs I applied for. I had to have courage to apply for my doctorate program, and I had to have courage to become that assistant professor, hopefully associate in a few weeks. And you just have to have courage. Just try. Sometimes you are the first. You are. You might be the first Black person at that hospital. You might be the first Black professor. And when you are, embrace the challenge, but own that you are not a superhero. You are not going to be perfect. And that's okay. And embrace that. You can embrace excellence and recognize that you're not going to be perfect. Perfection doesn't equal excellence. You want to be in the moment. Recognize the impact that you are having on that next generation of therapists and what impact they're going to have on the profession and on their clients that they're serving. So take those aha moments, take those just right moments, take all those things in when you're doing it. And remember to do your best. We are human, try your hardest, and adjust as you need to. And these are things that I've had to remind myself. Yeah, Amber, you didn't get it right today. That's okay. Learn from this, try something different. Oops. Also, you want to embrace your excellence by celebrating the things that you have done well. I have Simply Well here because that's the grant that I got last year, and it helped me write the bigger NIH grant that I am waiting for to find out if I got. You want to recognize your own hard work and dedication because you got yourself to this space, and that was hard enough. But also recognize that there were people along the way, as I pointed out today, I named them by name, that helped me get here. Toot your own horn, something I'm still working on, but if you don't toot it, it'll get rusty. So make sure that you do remind yourself how much work you've done and where you've come from, and continue to aim for a better version of yourself. That's my prayer every morning, that I'm better today than I was yesterday, and I'll keep trying to move that forward. And I do have a few accolades here. The students gave me Educator of the Month. I got the Outstanding Early Career Award. I got the Leadership Award. And this wonderful picture right here, we started a COTAD chapter at UTMB, and this was my first group of officers, and all these young ladies are now OTDs and OTRs, and they're practicing and they're doing great things. So super proud of them. Keep track of your accolades, and you do that by living a life with gratitude, and you want to dream. Use a gratitude journal. We are living in a very scary world and very scary times right now, but we want to take some time every day to be grateful for where we are. Imposter syndrome is real. It is real. It is real. But let me tell you something. If you use gratitude, you can remind yourself that you earned that position and that you belong there. So every time those thoughts come into your head that you don't belong there, or you got there because XYZ, or someone tries to tell you you got there because you're Black, or you got there because you're XYZ type hired. Nope. Remind yourself that you earned it every day. Look at that degree. Look at that certification. Remind yourself, I made it here because I'm supposed to be here. And again, gratitude helps with that. As I keep saying, you want to write things down. We forget about our accomplishments all the time. I've had people have to remind me what to put on my CV because I'll forget. And celebrate your wins. You worked hard, you need to celebrate that work. And I'll tell you, I'll use myself as an example. I defended my dissertation on July 31st, 2018. I started that defense at 11 a.m., finished at 11:45. At 11:47, I was declared doctor by my committee. By 12, I was scanning the signature page of that page with all my committee members' names on it to be uploaded into the database, and then walked that 207-page document to enrollment services at University of Texas Health Science Center so that it could be filed along with turning in my badge on July 31st. On August the 1st, I was back in inpatient rehab at Methodist Hospital working. Didn't take a moment to, you're Dr. Armstead, you did this. It took the, nope. Was like, all right, back to work. I got to make money. Make sure you celebrate your wins because you worked hard. So I'll end with this. This is my mantra. I'm wearing it right now. I live it. She believed she could, so she did. I believe that I want to do something, and I'm going to do it. And there's plenty of things I still haven't accomplished, but it's all in God's time, as far as I'm concerned. So that's where I am with that. And if you want to contact me, here is my work number and my email address, and I will happily talk to you. All right. Thank you. And I'll leave you with this. Be the change you want to see, and remember to move our profession forward. We want to keep it moving.
Thank you so much, Dr. Armstead. That insightful and actionable PowerPoint. Really appreciate that. With that, please, everyone, drop any questions that you may have inside the chat for Dr. Armstead. But with that, we're going to move on to our Q&A now. So Dr. Armstead, your first question for you. Writing manuscripts is hard, but it is one of the metrics for success in academia. Why is writing important, and how do you preserve despite these challenges?
You want to write for several reasons. One, writing in academia is one of the metrics of success, but what it also does is it adds more validity to what we do as a profession. And one thing, and you always want to think about this, when insurance companies are deciding whether they're going to pay for our services or not, or whether they're going to pay for a certain type of treatment, they need to know that treatment is not experimental and that it actually works. And if we don't write our papers and say, hey, this thing that we're doing actually works, then why would they pay us? So that's one piece, right? That evidence base. The other piece is, like I said, as OTs, we don't do enough of saying what we actually do and what actually works. And so by writing these papers, we are, again, adding more efficacy and validity to what we do as OTs. So we need to write. How I do it is usually I will block off time and I'll just write for 15 minutes and then I'll close the laptop and go about my business. but I have to schedule that time. And I do live by my planner, I do, but I have to schedule that time in order for me to write. And I make it a point, and I have accountability buddies that also make it a point to be like, hey, Amber, have you finished that manuscript? And I hope I answered.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Armstead. So the next question that we have is how / where does a clinician begin when they have desires to write and participate in manuscript or grant writing?
So for a manuscript, you just start. You decide what your topic is going to be, and you start looking up the literature on your topic. So you're going to start with a literature search. So if you're interested in stroke rehab, then you're going to go to the literature and not just look at OT, look at like rehab or neuroscience or just anything, and look at what's already out there. And is there anything out there that backs up what you're already doing? And if it is, that's where you're going to start. And if there isn't, there's your gap. You just found a gap in your research, and you're going to talk about why there's a gap here and how your work is actually filling that gap. So you just start with an idea and you just start looking stuff up. As far as grants, that's a different beast. So with grants, you want to find out what kind of grants are out there for something that you're interested in. And there's a different databases for that. There's grants.gov. There is different OT ones. I know Dr. Gaskins talked about the AOTF grant, but there's different grants out there. You can just start Googling grants and just seeing what pops up. And then from there, you're going to read their instructions, because the thing about a grant is if you don't follow their instructions, they're not going to read it. And you're going to have written all this amazing work. And if your margins are off, you're disqualified. So you want to make sure that you read the instructions. The other thing too, with the federal grants like the NIH or, HRSA or any of those, what you're going to also want to do is you can talk to them. They have people who will help guide you on how to make sure that your grant will at least be read. So there's just a ton of information out there for you. There are YouTube videos that'll help you talk you through certain grant writing for that too. But it all starts with an idea. So my thing is just dream big. If you have an idea about something, start looking things up about it.
Thank you, Dr. Armstead. And the questions are coming in. So let's move to the next one. Have there been any instances of times when you said yes, when you wanted to say no, and it led to unintended consequences or compromised your values?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think anyone can say that that hasn't happened to them. I am a geriatric millennial. And so the way I was raised is, especially if you wanted to advance your career, you said yes to everything. And there were plenty of times that I'm like, I do not have time to do this on top of all the other things that I'm doing. And it made me feel the ick, like, okay, I'm not going to do this well. And if I'm not going to do this well, again, embracing excellence. If I'm not going to do this well, then why am I doing it? So I've learned as I've been aging to stop saying yes to things that not only don't serve me, but aren't going to serve the greater good either. And if it's something that's really unethical, usually I have a talk with that individual saying, okay, so here's why I'm not going to do it. And here's why you should also reconsider your role in this. But that confidence has come with time. That was not something that I could say. So early in my career, that did happen. And I did have to reevaluate who I wanted to be as a person and the person I wanted to project to the world, and recognize that if I was going to be a part of something, I didn't want my name on something that I thought was unethical or not great. So I made sure to say no to those things.
Thank you, Dr. Armstead. Sage advice there. Next question. Once we write a manuscript, what unique and effective ways can we disseminate our work so that it can reach many people? Do you create a dissemination strategy such as talks and social media once you create a manuscript and it's published?
Yes, here's one of the best things you can do. So you can post your published manuscript on your social media. So if you have a LinkedIn, put a link to your manuscript on that once it's published. If you have an Instagram, link that, link it in your Facebook profile. You can link it in your email so people can click on your ORCID ID, which is one of the things you get when you start publishing. People can click on your ORCID ID and bam, all of your publications will pop up. You can put that on your your Google Scholar, any ResearchGate. Put your work out there. And then when people will start citing it. When they look up HIV and OT, my stuff pops up. And people have reached out to me because it says where I work. All they have to do is go on UTMB's website. There I am, click on me, and then I get emails about it. People asking to work with me, things like that. So yeah, you can totally add your work to anything that is going to be public. It is not shameless promotion at all. It is getting your work out there and making sure that other people can see what you're doing and understand the value of what occupational therapy can do for them. So yeah, nothing wrong with that. Podcasts are great too. If you have friends who are podcasters, go talk about OT. I did that. Talked about OT on a podcast right after I finished my doctorate. And that was great fun. And I was noticed by people. I also did a radio talk show on the power of OT as well. So yeah, just get your stuff out there. But yeah, linking it to your social media, beautiful idea. And that definitely makes sure that it's seen by the masses.
Thank you, Dr. Armstead. So Dr. Armstead, you mentioned, for example, that you have your doctorate, and that's in public health. Can you tell us a little bit, for example, how that's helped you expand in your career journey as an occupational therapy practitioner?
So yes, public health was my first love. I double majored in undergrad. I was biology and community health. And the community public health part is actually what led me away from pharmacy and into occupational therapy. And I had always intended to go and get this degree that I got. And what I loved about it is I feel like OT fits in so many places, but we have been conditioned to only really see it in the clinic, even though we know that's not where we started, but that's kind of what we've been conditioned to. And so by having the public health background on top of the OT background, it's allowed me to creep into other areas that normally we wouldn't be, but we should be. And now it's opened more doors. So it's allowed me to force people to know what OT is on that public health side, but also infiltrate spaces that I'm like, why is there no OT here? And so I was the capstone coordinator when I first started at UTMB. And the way that I designed the capstone was to put OTs in the community on purpose, in places like homeless shelters, in places like, domestic violence centers, places like that where an OT needs to be there because of all the things OT does with helping people regain their function, with routine establishment, with all the things that we do, but there was no OT in sight. So now all these places that need us now have access to us. And I don't think I would have been able to think that way without having the background in public health that I have. Even though we know what health promotion is, we all know what prevention is, but having the expertise in that and then knowing how to program plan to get to that, I think that was the crux. So that OT is always in me, and then finding ways to reach the bigger public with what we do, adding that meaning to their lives, but also hitting demographics that we would never get to.
Okay. All right, Dr. Armstead, thank you for that. You have one last question, okay? This particular question is how do you develop a topic that does not already exist? Are you interested in mentoring OTAs who are pursuing higher degrees, masters, doctorates, PhDs, etc.?
I don't discriminate. And OTAs or OTs, we're all practitioners, right? So yes, I am interested in that. How do you develop it? Like I said, it starts with an idea. So all the HIV stuff that I was finding was stuff that we had done way in the past. So I had to create stuff that wasn't there, and it's been successful. So I created it. And for you, it's the same thing. If you've got a dream, if there's something that we're not doing, do it. You do it, and then you make sure that the world knows about it. Just be courageous enough to do it and ask for help. And I did. I asked OTs for help, and I asked people who weren't OTs for help. And we worked together, and I was able to do the things that I've done. So if you can dream it and you want it, you just have to get out there and do it and ask for help while you're doing it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Armstead, and really appreciate your Q&A and the whole PowerPoint. It was excellent. With that, we are now going to transition to our next speaker at this time. So moving into our portion of the session today in regards to excellence in professional leadership. I'd like to introduce you to our final speaker today, who's Ms. Vicki Thomas. Ms. Vicki Thomas has worked as an OTA, a certified occupational therapy assistant, for over 30 years in the states of Louisiana, Texas, and Florida, focusing on the geriatric population and aging in place. Give me 1 second. Aging in place, just moved. I apologize. Give me one. Aging in place. She has worked in various settings. However, finds working with clients in residential and home health settings the most rewarding. She currently works as a full-time instructor for Kaiser University's Occupational Therapy Assistant Program in Orlando, Florida. She is passionate about her students developing clinical skills to work with various populations and understanding the importance of the OT-OTA collaboration to ensure clients receive the optimal level of care. While in Louisiana, Vicki served as Louisiana Occupational Therapy Association Board as OTA State Representative and OCD State Representative. In Texas, she served as Gulf Coast East District Secretary and the Texas Occupational Therapy Association Executive Board Secretary. In Florida, she currently serves as the Bylaws, Policy, and Procedure Chairperson. She also serves on the Commission of Practice for the American Occupational Therapy Association. While she's not watching her New Orleans Saints play football, she enjoys exploring Orlando's culture, which to her, surprise, goes beyond the world of Disney. With that, I would like to give the floor to Ms. Vicki Thomas. And again, please drop any questions that you have in the chat. Ms. Thomas?
Thank you so much, Andre. I am going to try to share my screen here. Can you all see that?
Yes, we see it.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you so much to the caucus for inviting me today. I consider it an honor. I consider it divine intervention that I am following Dr. Armstead. Some of the topics that she discussed, I think I have some of the same flavors, but as my grandmother would say, if you have two people who don't really know each other and they say the same thing, then it must be true. So with that, I'm going to start here. So I have the task of discussing embracing excellence in leadership. I think we've talked about the definitions. I know we talked about it earlier, but I had to take a look at it a little bit more as I was thinking about myself. So what is excellence? So when I looked it up, excellence was defined as the quality of being outstanding or extremely good. I was like, whoa, okay. And then I looked up what does the term embrace means. So as a verb, it was accepting, whether it's a belief or a theory or change, willingly and enthusiastically. I was like, okay, all right. So then it was, all right, what is embracing excellence? And so I found two quotes that I kind of looked at and I was like, okay, that describes me. So one was staying on the path of excellence is nurturing and cultivating it throughout your journey. And to embrace excellence, this is the one that I really like, we must shun mediocrity, despising it as a sinister enemy and guarding against its intrusion into our attitudes and endeavors. And that's the one that I really, really liked, because when I looked at my journey, I realized that was closer to my beliefs and values. And it's landed me where I am today, because what you see and what you hear today is not what I was initially. So a little bit on my background. I come from Louisiana. I'm another South girl, a small little area outside of New Orleans. I was the oldest first child of a young single parent, right? And just a little chubby little Black girl doing her thing, being a nerd in school, trying not to be seen, because back then I'm a Gen Xer. So back then, being a chubby little girl wasn't always the norm, and standards said that We shouldn't have been that way, right? But doing my thing, trying to be quiet and not be seen, and work in the school system and graduate and all that. I decided to go to University of Louisiana in Monroe, where that was the only school back at the time in Louisiana that had an OTA program. They had an OT and OTA program. So working to help my mom and stepdad with finances, I finally finished in 1990. Yes, you can do the math, in OT assisting. And then decided almost 20 years later to go back to school. Initially, I thought maybe I want to go into OT because I started to see the change in the profession. Theories were changing, philosophies were changing, things that I didn't learn early in the 1990s, almost 30 years ago from now. I wanted to see what it was about. But then I started thinking, there are other avenues that I can go into without having to go into OT, because back then that's all we knew. Okay, yes, you can start as an OTA, but maybe you need to finish up as an OT. No. Now I see that I can do more outside of having that OT, OTD, MSOT degree, right? So I went back to school almost 20 years later to get my degree in health studies. And then now, as Dr. Armstead says, I, working in geriatrics, realized that my niche is helping those age in place. And so now, in addition to teaching, I have decided to go back to school to get my master's in gerontology, to have a better understanding of how to make that happen for those that are desiring to age in place. So going from that little chubby kid to here, and then now to here. So I have the honor this year of receiving one of AOTA's highest honors for OTAs, which is the roster of honor. And as divine intervention would have it, I just moved to Orlando from Houston. So I consider it an honor to receive the award in the city that I recently moved to. So again, the question is, wow, how did I get from that chubby little kid to here, right? So I really had to take a deep look at it, at myself. My journey as an OTA, right? I've always been Black, I've always been full figured, and I've always been female. And again, initially, 1990, when I came out of school, going into those places and spaces, into those organizations, they already had a perception of how I should be, where I should be, right? Being told that I wasn't a real therapist because I was a COTA. 1990, living in Louisiana, went to school in North Louisiana where it was saturated because that was the only school with OTAs. But moving back home into the New Orleans area to work as an OTA. And back then, when you had to apply for jobs, you actually had to go fill the application in by paper, go in and turn it in, right? So they would see Black, full-figure female assistant, not a real therapist. That hit hard. And then as I was working as an OTA, I was either overutilized because they didn't really understand our scope of practice, or I was underutilized because they didn't understand my skill. So that's how it started for me. So what led me to leadership, and I didn't really know that I was in leadership at the time. I started with membership, engaging, and then as I engaged in membership, the mentorship, which I didn't really know was happening at that time, started happening. So membership, being the change that you're seeking, stunning that mediocrity and guarding its intrusion, right? So again, early on in the 90s, starting in Louisiana, a lot of those that were members, of course, the ratio was high for OTs versus OTAs. So I just started becoming a member. I just started attending because back then we attended things in person and not visual and not virtually. I just started becoming a member, right? first I needed to understand, because people were putting me in a box, but I needed to understand that OT assistants are vital to the sustainment of our profession, and our voices needed to be heard. So even though I was in a room where maybe there were 2 or others, OTAs like me, I needed to be present. I needed them to see us. And I needed them to see that despite of me being that full-figure Black OTA, I'm still present, right? And then understand that OTAs shouldn't be fooled by the A behind our credentials. The assistant is not a means for limiting our ability. Yes, we serve a purpose in the profession to assist with occupational therapy, not the occupational therapist, right? And though we have to have a certain level of supervision, that does not limit who we are as leaders. Again, not understanding that that was me grooming into leadership, but knowing my role, knowing my value, right? And then just becoming, like I said, being present in spaces and places. So I became a member of LOTA, TOTA, and now FOTA, just being present, right? But then when people started seeing and noticing my presence, that's when it started coming, that mentorship that I didn't know was being mentored. I was being mentored at the time. But they started noticing I was showing up. Again, we were being present. It wasn't virtual. We didn't have virtual back then. Being present, making it known that I was an OTA, wanting to engage. So then gradually, they started coming to me saying, hey, we hear you are an OTA. We need more information regarding OTAs. Even within our association, there was limited knowledge of who we are, what we could do. So that's when the mentorship started happening for me. I started getting support from occupational therapists in the clinic, starting there, starting to develop my skills as a team leader. Yes, you are a practitioner. Yes, you're treating patients, but guess what? You can start doing in-services to others to help them gain their knowledge of who you are in our OT profession. That's how it started for me. Then, again, we're always seeking memberships in all of our associations, right? Another occupational therapist came to me and said, hey, need you to be a part of this committee for Louisiana OT Association. And that's how I started. I started on the nomination committee in Louisiana, right? But then, again, being in places and spaces, having that seat at the table, I give reference to an OT who was our president at the time. And he's like, hey, I think you're doing a great thing. I think it is amazing that you are here as an occupational therapy assistant. I think we need to have on our board, an OTA representative, and I want you to be the first. And so from there, being in places and spaces, knowing my worth, knowing my value, and being present, they created that position at our association, and I was the first. And I'm very honored to be so. And so in Louisiana, we had the OTA rep had a voice and a vote. And then I transferred over to Houston, again, joined as a member, again, being in those places and spaces and wanting people to know that OTAs are present. Judy Joseph, I admire her as well, right? And so I started asking about positions. And so in Texas, there was no vote for the OTA rep. And so, of course, I was like, Judy, why can't they have a vote? I see they have a voice. Why can't they have a vote? And bless her heart, Judy was like, you know, OTAs can be in any position. You can run for any position. They are all open to you. So despite this one not having that vote, there are other positions. And because of that, I became the executive voted in. I ran and voted in as the executive secretary for the board. Being in those places and spaces, right? Shunning the mediocrity, guarding against its intrusion, knowing your worth, right? And then having those who probably don't even consider themselves mentors being your mentors, right? And so from that, from the support, from those that are advocating for us. That's where I really started developing my worth. So that little chubby kid in the beginning started thinking, wow, she's amazing. She can do this. It doesn't matter what other people think. Let them know who you are. And I carried that along in my career. So when I started in Texas, even an association, also started doing presentations, presenting at schools, going boldly to schools. I started at San Jacinto College in Houston, just going in trying to be a volunteer. And even then, our former program director, Kira Bill, she took me in. She became a mentor without even knowing that she was my mentor, creating me as a leader, not even recognizing that what she was doing was creating me as a leader, but recognizing my worth and my value and making me recognize my worth and my value. So again, grabbing hold, like Dr. Armstead said, grabbing hold to those mentors to help shape who you are as a leader. So I started presenting not only at schools, but also at conferences, OTA schools, anywhere that I could speak on behalf of who OTAs are and what we can do, I was speaking. And then when I moved to Florida, I didn't wait. I jumped in. I had the skills. I felt like I knew my worth. I immediately joined the membership and then immediately say, hey, I'm ready to volunteer. And that's how I became the Bylaws, Policy, and Procedures Committee chair. Again, knowing your worth, being the change that I'm seeking, shunning mediocrity. So for me, again, membership, mentorship equals leadership. Knowing my worth and my value first, understanding my place as a person that can sit at the table, being in those places and spaces, right? Knock on the door. If there's a crack, bust through the door, right? Bringing my seat to the table, doing it with confidence and knowing that I deserve to be there. And just being determined to be the change that I was seeking, right? Shunning my mediocrity, guarding its intrusion. That is one thing that I tell my students all the time. Be that change that you're seeking. Recognize that even as an OTA, you can have a seat at the table. If you don't if people don't understand that, help them understand. That's a part of education. As a practitioner, you're going to educate your clients as to who you are. And then those that, even in our association, all of them may not know who we are and what we can do. One of the beauties of the things that I like working at San Jacinto in Houston, as well as Kaiser University in Orlando, the flavor in my room is not always the flavor that I see in associations. What do I mean by that? When I moved to Orlando, if I have a set of 12 students, 4 may be Hispanic, 3 may be African American, 2 may be Asian. It's a beautiful flavor and culture there. And I want them to understand that it may not always be, when we go to conference next month in Orlando, what you see here in the classroom may not be what you see, but don't let that deter you, because we can be leaders as OTAs, as OTAs of color. We're all beautiful and we're all leaders. So determined to even teach my students that they can be the change that they're seeking. And that's all I have. I want to say thank you for that opportunity. There's my email address.
Thank you so much, Vicki, for that wonderful presentation and sharing your leadership journey throughout your career. With that, please, everyone, if you have any questions for Ms. Vicki Thomas, please drop them in the chat. But with that, Vicki, I actually do have a question for you off the bat. So we've seen that you have a lot of different volunteer leadership positions and throughout your career. Why do you think it was important for your career journey to have those leadership positions?
Thank you. Why was it important to, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
So why was it important? Particularly that is a volunteer type of role, right? It's not maybe, for example, in practice where you're actually being compensated for being like a rehab director. But for example, you being a volunteer leader, how did you feel that was the impact on your career?
Oh, one of the reasons that I do love that volunteering, Andre, thank you for that question, is
No
that
problem.
as I tell my students, there are shoulders who I sit upon, right? I love to tell the story of Lila Lorenz and how she has opened the door for us as practitioners of color. I feel that, again, being in those places and spaces allow my students that are coming before me, after me, because I tell them, look, I'm getting old. I can't always be in these positions. We're going to need some new, innovative thinkers. But the way that I can do that is to show them first, right? Being that change that you can do it. So that's what I feel that's very meaningful and purposeful to me. And that helps keep the OT profession going, as well as the understanding of OTAs in that profession. Sometimes I get nervous and get uncomfortable, but I know by me doing that, there's a kid right behind me that may feel that uncomfortableness as well. And so if they see that I can do it, I know that they can do it. And that's why I do it for the most, to keep our profession viable, to keep OTAs present and visible.
Thank you, Vicki. Next question. You spoke about knowing your worth and value. Can you identify any instances where you undervalued yourself or you led to settling goals that don't align with your true aspirations or your potential?
Yes, for sure. When I first started in this career. So it was allowing those that didn't really know to set the standard of who I was. And it wasn't until I started recognizing, hey, I am more than this. They just don't know my value right now. And no, discredit to OTs at the time when you have so much going on and somebody brings an OTA into your life and you haven't had much experience, you just go based upon what you know. And so because of that, and then me starting out as an entry-level OTA, on my end, I'm thinking they do know, but they've got so many other things going on. And even now, that's what I teach my students. Those OTs that are in the OTD program, I don't know how much they have as an opportunity to learn who OTAs are. So it's time for you to advocate for yourself. But I didn't know that until experience along the way taught me, hey, they really don't truly know, because they've got so many other things that they have to learn. So that's when I started pushing into those OT programs as a guest speaker in Louisiana. Hey, this is who we are. You may not get to see us a lot or often, but hey, when you run upon us, one of us that may be hired, know that we have significant value. Know that what we're learning is going to help our clients maximize their potential. Because even then, again, back in the 90s, early 2000s, they didn't really know in Louisiana because we only had one school. It wasn't until later that we had two schools, and I think there's 3 or 4 now. They didn't really know what OTAs were. So I was helping with that education. That's
Thank you,
where I learned
Vicki.
value.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful to hear about that and the importance of OTAs in our profession. So, I mean, I really appreciate you sharing kind of that viewpoint, like looking at it and saying they didn't know. So, actually, I got a follow-up question in regards to that. You said, for example, they didn't know, but you felt it was a need for you to speak up. Can you maybe touch on that self-advocacy piece in regards to that? Like, when did you feel comfortable to speak up? Because at first, maybe as an entry-level practitioner, you're kind of like, that's not my place. So I think for those in the audience, it'd be very helpful to kind of hear that.
Absolutely. So again, early on, understanding that, okay, maybe OTs don't really recognize who we are and what we do. And then just started being a part of that membership. And then just being present. Hey, I'm in the house, but I'm an OTA. Oh, what is an OTA? So just really, really being present in those spaces. And then that dialogue started happening. And so it was like, oh, so this is what an OTA is, not an occupational therapist assistant. Oh, what do you guys do? And then just through that dialogue and then being comfortable that there was a need because there's a gap in understanding that collaboration, right? That's where that communication started. And then started getting in other places and spaces where there were other OTAs who were in leadership. That was very helpful to me. And so coming outside of the box, and then again, virtual engagement started happening, making it a little bit better, meeting other OTAs that were of leadership positions. I give kudos to Melissa Tilton, who helped to groom me without even knowing that she was grooming me, teaching me about the importance of OTAs in leadership, and those that are surrounding me right now. So having those dialogues and recognizing the need for more dialogue was when I became more confident.
Okay. Thank you so much, Vicki. Another question I have, in a way, piggybacking off of that, you talked about the importance of, for example, meeting Miss Joseph in regards to being an OT that was supportive and letting you know that OTAs had their spot. Could you kind of talk about that? Like, when you've had to speak up, were your OTs very supportive in that situation, or do you feel like it was a pushback?
Oh, no. Again, even in Louisiana, is that where it started? It's like getting in that space, making those conversations. And then it was the OT that embraced me in Louisiana, and then definitely in Texas as well. Understanding that, hey, we recognize you. And I will say Texas, not to toot Texas horn, but to toot Texas horn. They were very innovative and always trying to include OTAs in every aspect of the association, making sure that we can run for anything and be anything in the association, as well as being great speakers in the association and outside in our different regions and chapters. Definitely it takes that OT, again, not recognizing that they're a mentor, but just understanding the importance and the value of us as assistants. There was never a pushback, even in Florida. And Andre, I know you can speak for that. Immediately, oh, you're an OTA. We welcome you. We want you to engage as much as possible, be a part, and bring others forward.
Thank you, Vicki. I think it's so critically important for that piece that you added about the supportive nature of, our OTs. Sometimes we look at it that maybe they don't understand this and we have kind of a friction, but it's nice to just talk about it and say, no, it's not a friction. It's just sometimes we may not know. So we maybe have to advocate on our own to kind of say, this is what I can do if you don't know. And they're very receptive to that. So I think that's a great piece for us to kind of leave on in regards to that. But with that, Vicki, I just want to say thank you so much for your presentation and your Q&A at this point. And I would also like to say to the audience today, thank you to all the presenters, first off. You've all been wonderful in sharing your expertise. And it's been an honor and a pleasure to serve as the MC for this event for everyone in the audience. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Rakia and Donald that will have some announcements and an evaluation that they will talk to us about. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre, and thank you to all of the speakers. I will note that there was a fifth speaker that was scheduled for today, but they had some scheduling conflicts, and so we're not able to make it. And we hope at some point we will be able to get them to share their experience because they had a remarkable story as well. So as I'm thinking about this and reflecting, we've had, if I may use Vicki's word, a lot of flavor added into what you all have learned and heard today. You have listened to clinical excellence from Dr. Gaskins, and he talked about not just achieving excellence, but chasing it and what that looks like with respect to his journey and how he's continued to chase excellence. And then we heard from Ms. Young that shared her story and her role in pursuing further and higher education and being in spaces and showing up. And then we heard from Dr. Armstead that shared her story in academia, and when she talked about a lot of the work that she'd done and a lot of the people that had impacted her, the importance of her support system, and then knowing that you cannot make progress by sitting on the sidelines, so getting involved. And then we wrapped up with Miss Vicki Thomas with all of her professional leadership that she's done and being the first in a lot of these spaces. And congratulations on your roster of honor. That is not an award that is given. It is an award that is earned, and you are well worth and deserving of it. So I am always inspired whenever we have these types of conferences because it allows me to be able to see outside of the network that I work in on a day-to-day basis and hear from people with all of these different perspectives and experiences. And it's inspiring for me. I'm ready to go in and do more writing, as Dr. Armstead talked about, and further committed to volunteering and getting involved, as Vicki talked about. And so now we're going to take a moment for each of you to reflect now that you've heard from all four of our speakers and we've talked about excellence in these different spaces. Just take a moment and think about what excellence means to you. So, how would you define that? And we're just going to take a few moments and you can put that in the chat. What does excellence now mean to you? If it's any different than what has been shared. Utilizing my talents and pushing forward. Great. So it's been said that each one of us has something that we can use, and we just need to find a place to start. Pushing forward, continuing to do it despite the adversity, to go over and beyond what is expected of you. So getting involved, um, reaching outward. Excellence is in our DNA. Okay, now the responses are coming in. I'm trying to read them all. Always seeking personal and professional growth for myself and my work community. So understanding one of the key things about all four speakers is that this journey was not all about them. They found ways and spaces to be able to share what they learned with others. They sought out assistance and support from others around them. So our journeys are not achieving that excellence. It's not just about us. It's about what we can do for others and what we can do for our community. And yes, I would agree, excellence is in our DNA. I think there's a song about that. Living your life with purpose, being the change you want to see. Again, Dr. Armstead is going back to being actively engaged in that. The act of being consistent, Dr. Gaskin said. So being consistent even when it's hard, until you reach that state of excellence and then continue chasing that. How we can share our collective experiences, which is what we're spending time doing today. So we're sharing this. We all have our different journeys that we're going towards, and there may be areas and spaces now that we want to explore after listening to our speakers. And now, after the presentations, I now see excellence as pushing ourselves to be our best selves, to remember where we came from and recognizing the people that have lifted us up. I think that's great. So reaching back, looking forward, staying grounded in that way, and actively striving to move above and beyond. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we hope that you all will take some of these nuggets with you as you move forward, as we prepare to wrap up today. So don't leave just yet. We have a few important announcements, a few meaning a lot, but they're all important and I want you to get those. So we're just going to take some time to go through that. Thank you for sharing. So the first announcement, the National Black OT Caucus, again, in the state of excellence, we are going to celebrate 50 years in Orlando, Florida. If you are familiar with the caucus, you know that we typically meet on Fridays at AOTA. This year's meeting is going to be a party. We have a DJ. We have a dance floor. We will have food. Come and celebrate with us. It is listed as a special event. We do have tickets available. There will be seating that's available. We have founders coming back from when they started in the small hotel lobby and from 1974 that will be coming back and sharing their journeys with us. So it will be an experience in excellence. We will be surrounded by it. And what is the attire? After 5 attire or your best African attire. So this is an event where you show up and you show off. We are going to have fun. The tickets for this event, it is a ticketed event, is going to be $100 for practitioners or guests. So you do not have to be an OTP in order to attend. If you have a friend, if you have a family member that wants to come and support, or another colleague that wants to come and support, they are also welcome to come. Just make sure that whenever you add the ticket to your AOTA registration, that you add that additional ticket as well. And we'll be having a live in the next week or so to give some more details about this event. So that is the celebration. If you're looking for the business meeting, that is happening before on March 14th, but on that Friday, March 22nd, at the Rosen Center in Orlando, Florida, we will be partying with a purpose. Okay. We also want to announce that we have our inaugural NBOTC Occupational Therapy Award of Excellence that has now been rolled out. This is the first time that the caucus has had an award to recognize the excellence of our OT practitioners. So the executive board made the decision that this would be a great time to establish this award in honor of the founders. There is information posted about the eligibility requirements, and the nominations are now live. So if you know, we've now had 4 practitioners in excellence in all directions share. If you know others that would fit the criteria, please submit nominations on their behalf. Or if you are that practitioner of excellence, feel free to submit a nomination for yourself. Self-nominations are welcomed. And then our annual business meeting is going to take place virtually on Thursday, March 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There have been a lot of exciting changes within the caucus, so we are welcoming all NBOTC members to sign up and attend. We're going to share some important information about the exciting things that we have done and the things that we're planning moving forward for the caucus as we celebrate year 50 and move into year 51. Again, for our 50th, we have a souvenir booklet. So at our celebration that we will have in Orlando, we're going to have souvenir booklets. So if you have a small business, if you are at an institution and you have universities that would like to celebrate or recognize the caucus for their 50th anniversary, please ask them, or even if you are the small business owner, please ask yourself to go in and support the caucus. Patron donations can be accepted with as little as $25, and then ads can be submitted for as little as $40 and up from there. So if you want your work to be shared, your business, your organization, your institution, if they want to extend congratulations to you or to the caucus, it is open to anyone to come in and support, and we appreciate that in advance. Brothers, our organization, our partnering organization for today's event, they're going to have a meet and greet during the AOTA Inspire Conference, and that will take place on Saturday, March 23rd from 9 to 11 a.m. local time. So if you are a Black registered male occupational therapy healthcare professional and would like to be in contact with other Black registered male healthcare professionals, assistants, and students, please make sure to contact them. They are a great resource and network of support for Black males within our profession. There will be several presentations that will take place during AOTA conference. This is one that we're going to highlight for today. Several of our NBOTC and Brothers members will be presenting at this event. So Friday, March 22nd from 8 to 11. That will take place at the Orange County Convention Center. And if you are registered for the AOTA conference, then it is free for you to attend. And then I will also just add to this that there will be a list coming out. So if you are on the call and will be presenting during AOTA, there will be an opportunity to share what sessions you will be presenting so that everyone can also show up and support your work as well. So as Brother Donald stated, Howard University is also celebrating their 50th anniversary during the AOTA Inspire Conference in Orlando. And they have 50 years of promoting occupation in the solution of human and social problems. All are welcome to join. That is going to take place Saturday, March 23rd from 7 to 11 local time. And if you have any questions, there's a QR code and a link that's available here. And I will just wait a few seconds if you wanted to look that up and use your camera to use that QR code. And then I just want to take a moment to recognize our committee that was working on planning this today. Planning a conference of this magnitude is not something that a single person can do, but it's something, and we have such high expectations from the previous years that we've done. So I really want to take time to acknowledge Dudley Yacinth. Are you on? I'm not sure if your camera's on to wave and let everyone know who you are. And Natalie Chang Wright. Okay, and then Miss Judy Joseph, whose full government name was called during today's presentation, and then along with myself. So it has been a pleasure. I would say this team worked together seamlessly because we had the perspectives of males and because we have perspectives of occupational therapy and occupational therapy assistants. We were intentional about trying to identify people that could speak to excellence within those particular realms because we understand the value of being able to see that representation in these types of spaces to show that excellence is not limited in any way to a degree or a credential, and you can be excellent in whatever space that you're in. So thank you all, planning committee, for being a part of this work. Thank you all speakers for accepting the invitation to share how you have achieved excellence in your respective areas. And then just a quick shout out to the Texas OT Association, who lended use of their Zoom platform so that we can conduct our conference today. So we thank you. Judy Joseph is the executive director of TOTA, and they were kind enough to lend that, and so we are grateful. And then the last announcement that I have, you will receive certificates of attendance. So we ask that everyone please complete the conference evaluation. Those certificates, if you are wanting to use this for licensure, your licensure requirements will be sent out within the next 3 days. So make sure that your name is correct, that you complete the conference evaluation so that you can receive your certificate of attendance. And there will be an adjustment because we were short one speaker. We will make sure that we adjust that time to properly reflect the time spent in today's conference. And then last but not least, if you have not already connected, if you weren't inspired on the importance of getting involved, it's Brothers and the National Black OT Caucus are great places to start. If you're wondering where to start, how do I get involved? Who do I connect with? I want to know more. I want to help out. I want to be a part of developing my career so that I can work towards excellence in my respective space. You are welcome to join us. We are open, we are available, and there is plenty of work to be done. And is in many organizations, not nearly enough hands to do the work. So we welcome you. If you have a gift, skill, or talent that you're not sure that you have, or you think you might want to develop, these are safe spaces in which you can do that. So you can look us up on our website that we have listed here for the National Black OT Caucus. The Brothers website is also listed. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Both organizations have social media platforms that are pretty visible and very active. So with that being said, this is our event survey. If you have not received the link in the chat, but that, unless, Brother Donald, do you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No, Dr. Kitchens, I really think you've summed it up, but I would just like to say this. I am amazed at the level of excellence and intelligence that we have in our OT community, and especially in our OT community of color. And it just does my heart good to listen to everyone's story today, to glean from your life struggles, your background, and how it has perpetuated you to where you are today and the good that you're still continuing to do. To be honest, I am so looking forward to conference in a few weeks. As my granddaddy used to say, I'm drinking out the salsa, y'all. And I just can't wait to fellowship with everyone for those that can make it. But Dr. Kitchens, great job. And committee, great job to you all.
Yes, and I was getting ready to wrap up, but I'm checking the chat here. Dr. Hilliard Bangura, will the nominations be made public? Can you clarify that question, please? I want to make sure it's addressed. And if you're able to unmute, you can do it as well.
I'm
Yes.
sorry. I struggle with unmuting on demand. You were talking about the awards, the inaugural awards. So my question immediately was that will the nominations and who's going to be voting?
Okay.
Yes.
So there is a committee that has been set up. There will be founders, so there will be independent that will be reviewing those nominations.
Okay.
And the nominations, the nominees will be announced at the celebration event that will take place in Orlando, and the awardee will be announced at that event as well.
Okay, and
Thank
it will
you.
be one awardee.
It'll be one awardee. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that question.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay. Were there any other questions that I might have missed? Okay. We hope to see everyone there. Thank you all again for attending. If all hearts and minds are satisfied, that will conclude today's session of the 3rd Annual National Black OT Caucus Brothers Black History Month program. We thank you, and we hope to see you. If not at conference, we hope to see you next year at our next event. Thank you all.